Okay, I'm sharing the screen with you all. So I think no one is given you the test, right? Sahil, how's your test? Please let me know if I'm audible to you. Okay. Now today we have to discuss the three topics. That is the first one is your practical topic. Then we will discuss the theory topic. That is your introduction of the carbohydrates and introduction of the monosaccharides and pH meter calibration. So, do you know about the pH meter? What is the pH meter? What is the pH meter? What is the function of the pH meter?
Madam, negative logarithm of the hydrogen atoms.
Mhm.
Measure the acidity or alkalinity of a solution.
Okay. So, in your topic, you have to measure the pH of different products by using the pH meter. Okay. That is okay. The product that we have to measure the pH is your tap water, milk, fresh citrus fruit, colored soft drink, colorless soft drink, or any sample. Okay. Now, what we have to do before measurement of the pH? Okay, the main part is that we have to calibrate the pH meter. Okay, because the measurement of the pH is very easy. What we have to do, we take the electrode and just dip into the product and take the reading, right? So this is not a tough task, but before taking the reading of that pH meter, we have to calibrate it, okay, which is very important. So the first topic that we are going to discuss is about the calibration of the pH meter. Clear my points?
Clear, madam.
Okay, let's start. So pH meter is what? pH meter is used to measure the pH of the food products, buffers, and solution. Now, what does this calibration means? Okay, we all know that when we have our instruments, okay, so we have to calibrate that instrument to get the correct or accurate result. To get the accurate result. That's why this calibration of the pH meter is very important. So same pH meter is what? pH meter is also the instrument. Okay. If we are not calibrate this pH meter, if this pH meter is not calibrated, then the result that we get is not accurate. Okay. The result is not accurate. Now, one thing like just a minute. So basically, for the calibration of the pH meter, we required a buffer that we have to discuss in later. But buffer is required for this calibration. Clear my points?
Clear, madam.
Okay, let's move. Introduction. So basically, this pH is a instrument. Obviously, that I already told you, it is the instrument. And just a minute. this pH meter is used to measure the concentration of the hydrogen ion present in a solution. Okay, the value that we get on a pH meter is simply what? It is the concentration of that particular hydrogen ion which are present into the solution. Obviously, we have a solution. This solution contain the hydrogen ion. So, pH meter measure that concentration of the hydrogen ion, and the calibration of the pH meter is very important because it gives the accuracy and reliability of the measurement. When we calibrate the pH meter, then it gives the accuracy, means that the chances of the error is decreases. The result that we get from the calibrated pH meter is more accurate as compared to that pH meter which are not calibrated. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do before taking the pH of the food product or any sample, we have to calibrate the pH meter in every morning. Proper calibration is very important for a scientific way, industrial way, and food quality application. Like suppose that if we have, suppose that we have to prepare a buffer solution. Okay, now suppose that if we have to prepare a citrate buffer. Now tell me the pH of that citrate buffer that I already told you.
5.5, madam.
5.5, right? Okay, now suppose that if the pH is not calibrated, okay, now this result will not be get. Maybe you take that value and it you take it 5.5, the that digital meter shows 5.5, but the actual pH is around 4.5 or maybe 10. So that's why for the accuracy of that the calibration of the pH meter is very important. Importance of that calibration: compensate for electrode drift and aging. So when the calibration is done, obviously electrode drift and aging is compensate. The result will that we get is accurate result and reproducible reading, means that we can use that reading. Okay, that calibrated pH meter performance the maintenance of that instrument performance over the time and required for the quality assurance and regulatory compliance. So it is required for the quality assurance and that for fulfillment of that regulatory compliance, that I already told you the pH of that buffer solution. Next, principle of the pH meter. So here it is based upon the principle that is there is a difference between two electrodes. Okay, so here are electrochemical potential, and this electrochemical potential is difference between two electrode. Now when we have a pH meter, we have two type of the electrode. The one is your glass electrode and another one is your reference electrode. Okay, so this pH meter is based upon the electrochemical potential between that glass electrode and reference electrode. Glass electrode is used to measure the hydrogen ion activity, and reference electrode provide the stable potential. The pH meter convert this potential into a pH value by using the Nernst equation. Clear?
Clear, madam.
Okay. Now for the calibration of the pH meter, we required a buffer solution. Okay. And the pH of that buffer solution should be known. We require three type of the buffer solution. The first one is your pH 7, then pH 4 and pH 12. Okay, on the basis of that buffer requirement, this pH meter is type of the calibration is divided. Okay, now we in our laboratory we calibrate the pH meter only by using two type of the buffer, that is your pH 7 and pH 4. But for more accurate to get that more accurate result, you have to use that pH 12 also. Okay, but if you use these two, you will get the accurate result. pH 7 is for the acidic, pH 7 is for the neutral. pH 4 is for the acidic, and pH 10, not 12, pH 10 is for that alkali. Okay, the buffer that you are prepared should be fresh and uncontaminated. Okay, suppose that some like many workers who are working in the laboratory, what they do, they prepare a buffer solution and put it into for a longer period of time, like around 6 months. No, it is not the right way. You have to prepare it freshly. At least freshly means that 15 days that buffer solution should be used. But more than 15 days, the buffer is spoiled and you will not get the accurate result. And the second thing is that the buffer should be uncontaminated, means that the contamination should not be occur and at the same temperature as a sample. Suppose that if we have a hot solution, like suppose that if we have to suppose that if we have to take the pH of the coffee. Now coffee is hot. Now the buffer that we use for the calibration, it should be also hot. Okay, the temperature of that buffer and the sample should be same. Okay, if it is not same, then we will not get the accurate result because temperature somehow affected the pH quality. Clear my points?
Clear, madam.
Okay. Then types of the calibration. Again, on the basis of that buffer solution, we can divide the calibration. The first one is your 1 point calibration. In 1 point calibration, what we have to do, we take that approximate measurement, means that accurate result is not taken by this 1 point calibration, but we will get the approximate measurement. Then next is your 2 point calibration. In 2 point calibration, we uses the 2 pH. Okay, the first one is your pH 7, which is for the neutral, and the second one is your either we use a pH 4 or either we use a pH 10. pH 4, if we use a pH 4, we maintain that acidic, and if we use a alkaline, then we use pH 10. And when we do that 2 point calibration, then it improves the accuracy. Next is your 3 point calibration. In 3 point calibration, all three type of the buffers are used, either pH 7, pH 4 or pH 10, and it will give a high precision result, or and it is for that high precision laboratory work. Clear?
Clear, madam.
Okay. Now calibration procedure. Here I will tell you the step. Then after that I will draw a diagram. Then show you the step of that calibration procedure. Now first of all, obviously what we have to do, we have to switch on the pH meter and wait for it stabilization. Then we remove the electrode and we wash that electrode with the help of the distilled water. After washing it with distilled water, we take our filter paper and blot dry it. Okay, either take a filter paper or either take a blotting paper and dry that electrode. Just rub it very smoothly because this electrode is very sensitive. Okay, if you pressurize it, it will be break. So that's why you have to dry it very smoothly. Then you have to immerse that electrode into the first buffer, that is your pH 7. Or when you are calibrating your pH meter, you have to calibrate it. You have to calibrate first pH 7 because of their neutral property. Clear?
Clear,
Because,
madam.
okay. Then you have to adjust the meter so that the buffer value is reaches. Then again rinse it with the water. Then measure the pH 4 or pH 10 and confirm the reading are stable and correct. So this is a calibration procedure. Now come to the diagram way. Now I'm going to draw a pH meter. So basically this is your pH meter. This is a digital screen. Here you have a 4 knob, and this is your electrode. Electrode is made up of that glass. And this electrode is always dipped into the KCl solution. Now this is your KCl solution and this is your electrode. If this electrode is not dipped into the KCl solution, it will be deteriorate. That's why this electrode is always dipped into that KCl solution. Okay, this is a digital screen. This knob is known as a temperature knob. This knob is known as a call knob. This knob is known as a slope, and the last one is known as a function. Okay, temperature knob is for the setting of that temperature. Call knob is for the pH 7. Slope knob is for the pH 4 or pH 10. And here function key, it have a two value. The one is your standby and here it is a pH. Now first of all you have to prepare the two buffer solution. That is your pH 7 and pH 4. Okay. Now for the preparation of this buffer solution, we have a capsule. Maybe in your laboratory you have a tablet, but we have a capsule and the preparation instruction are written in the bottle of that tablet. Okay, now what we have to do, we twist that capsule and take the internal material and dissolve into 50 ml of distilled water. Both type of the buffer solution can be prepared separately, but the procedure is same. Now when it is completely dissolved, add 50 ml distilled water. Now your buffer solution is ready. Now what we have to do, we have to take out that electrode and rinse with distilled water and dry. Then dip into pH 7. When you dip into the pH 7, you will get the some value here. Okay. No, sorry. When you dip into the pH 7, you have to move this knob, that is function knob, from standby to pH. Okay. Then here you get this some value. Sorry, one more thing. Before taking the pH, you have to set the temperature. Set the temperature. This temperature will be set, which is written on your bottle. Okay. Now here I will set the temperature 25 degrees Celsius. Then we take that electrode, then rinse with distilled water, dry and dip into the pH 7. Then we move this function key from standby to pH. Then we will get the some value here. Now what we have to do, we have to move this call button in a clockwise direction. Move the call button in clockwise direction until you will get the 7 value here. When you get the 7 value in a digital pH meter, you have to stop it. Then remove the electrode and again move that knob from pH to the standby. Then again you have to rinse it with that distilled water and dry. This time you have to dip into the pH 4. Now you don't have to touch that temperature and call button. Then again you have to move that function key from standby to pH. Here again some value you will get. You have to move this time that knob, okay? Slope knob until you will get the pH 4. Clear my points?
Clear, madam.
When it reaches 4, then you have to stop that knob and now your pH meter is calibrated. Now you have to take the pH of any sample without touching any knob. Only you have to move this function knob without touching it, any knob. And when the work is completed, again you have to dip it into the KCl solution. You have to check the KCl solution frequently. This is the procedure of the calibration. Now, temperature consideration is very important because if this temperature is vary, then the pH readings will also be changed. Use temperature compensated meters or measure at constant temperature. Buffers and sample must be at the same temperature. That I already told you, that buffers and the sample should be on a same temperature. Clear? Clear?
Clear, madam. Clear, madam.
Okay, just give me 1 minute, then we will continue. Okay. Now the next is your electrode maintenance. Okay. Electrode maintenance is very important. You have to store your electrode either in pH 4 buffer or electrode storage solution. Okay. Electrode storage solution, that is your KCl solution. Okay. Don't store your electrode in a dry way. Avoid the contamination of buffer bottles. Regularly clean the electrode bulb with mild detergent or special cleaning solution. Common error and troubleshooting. Okay, drifting reading. If we get the drifting reading, then this will get due to the electrode aging or dirty bulb. If your bulb is dirty, then you will get the drifting reading, or if your electrode is aging, then again you will get the drifting readings. Okay, slow response you will get when a electrode is either dry or contaminated. In both the cases, if you are not put your electrode in a KCl solution or dip into that buffer solution, then your electrode is dry. In that case, you will get the slow response. Inaccurate calibration. It will get when the buffer is older or poor rinsing technique. Maybe when you're rinsing it with that distilled water, then it is not rinsed it in a proper way. And if the buffer solution is older, then again you will get the inaccurate result. Unstable reading is get when the temperature is fluctuated or the cable is damaged. Even if your that electrode is damaged, then again you will get that unstable readings. Frequency of calibration, you can calibrate it daily for routine laboratory use before each critical measurement. Okay, when you have to start your work, you have to calibrate it. And if you are doing some critical work, like suppose that if you are doing your work like some research, then you have to take your you have to calibrate your pH meter before each measurement. After long storage or electrode replacement, follow manufacturer recommendations. Conclusion, regular calibration ensure that we will get the accurate pH measurement, use fresh buffer, proper technique, and maintain the electrodes. Calibration is a key component of that good laboratory practices. Clear?
Clear, madam.
So calibration of the pH meter is clear.
Clear,
Everyone,
madam.
calibration of the pH meter is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just a minute. Then I will show you the practical video of this. Okay. Now the video is started. Just see that video. Then after that, we will continue to the next topic. Take time. Just a minute. Screen is not visible. Everyone, welcome to the ITLS Academy. Today we are going to discuss the instrument which is. It is visible now.
Visible, ma'am.
Okay. Known as a pH meter, and also we know that how we calibrate this pH meter. Basically, this pH meter work on the principle of potentiometer. Okay. So for the calibration pH meter, we required a pH buffer. So we required a two pH buffer. One is pH for pH 4 and one is for pH. See, this is a capsule that we use for the preparation of that buffer solution. Okay. 7. Basically, they are what? They are a capsule. See, I am going to show you the capsule and then I will tell you how we prepare it. So what we do, we simply take a 50 ml of distilled water into a beaker, and then we twist it, and after twisting it, the substances which are present inside this capsule are dissolved into that 50 ml of distilled water. Once the capsule are completely dissolved into the distilled water, then we make a volume 100 ml with the help of distilled water. Then we get this solution that is for pH 4 and that is for pH 7. Okay. This is a pH meter. This pH meter have four knobs. One knob is for the temperature. One that knob is called a coil, and this coil knob is for a calibration of the pH 7, and this slope is for the pH 4, and this is called a function key, which is moved to and reaches to the pH. Then pH meter also have a electrode. This electrode are always dipped into a KCl solution. Now I'm going to start the calibration of this pH meter. First of all, what we have to do, we have to set the temperature 25. Now I'm going to set it 25. Then after that, we remove the electrode and wash it with the distilled water. See, I'm going to wash it with the help of the distilled water. Then with the help of the cotton, we wipe it. After wiping, we dissolve this electrode into the pH 7. Okay. Now after that, what we have to do, we move that function key to the pH. See, when you are moving it in a display, the values are shown. It is here 5.18 or 17. Now we have to move the call button till we get here 7. Now I am going to move it. See, this is 6.8, 10, 11. Now it is 6.45, 50, 6.76. Now it is reaches 7.0 or 7.1. Now we wait it so that it will become stable. See, now it becomes stable. Now we uh, move this button from pH to the standby and remove the electrode from the pH 7 buffer. Again, we wash this electrode with the help of the distilled water. Again, we have to wipe it with the cotton. After wiping it, we have to calibrate the pH 4. This pH 4 is for a acidic. Now, when we are putting this electrode inside the pH 4, we are not touch two knobs, that is your temperature knob and a coil knob. Okay. Now I am going to move this function key from standby to the pH, and after that, when you are moving it here, it is in display, the value are there, that is around 5.13. Now wait for the stability. Once the stability get, we move the call button. Here it is 4.94, 93, 91. Now I'm moving the slope button for calibration the pH 4. When you are moving it, the value are decreasing. Now see it is reaches to 4.20, 4.19, 112, 4.07, 05, 04, 03, and 4.00. Now it is stable. Now wait for the stability. When the stability gets, our pH meter are calibrated. Now the value are stable. Now remove the electrode and again wash with the distilled water. And move the function key from pH to a standby. This is how we calibrate our pH meter. Now our calibration of the pH meter is clear.
Clear, madam.
Okay. So the next topic is introduction of the carbohydrate. What is carbohydrate? What is the carbohydrates?
Madam, actually, carbohydrates is a three combination of elements, ma'am. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen.
Right.
Simple sugars, ma'am.
Simple sugar? Only simple sugar carbohydrate.
Uh, Three combination of elements, ma'am. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen.
No, this is right. That is a combination of three atoms, that is your carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But you said that na, it is a simple sugar, right?
Simple
Is
sugars,
it carbohydrate is always a simple sugar?
monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides, ma'am.
It is the division of the carbohydrate. Monosaccharide is a simple sugar, but di, poly, oligo, is it simple sugar?
No, madam.
No. Okay. So basically, carbohydrates are what? They are the sugars or derivatives of sugar. Either they are sugar or derivatives of the sugar. Derivative of sugar means that we derive the product from the sugar. Okay. And it is made up of the three atoms, that is carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. And this carbohydrate is the primary source of energy for living beings. Okay, either plants, either animals, either human being. For all the living beings, this carbohydrate is considered as a primary source of energy. Clear? And carbohydrate contain both type of the sugar, that is your simple sugar in case of the monosaccharides, and it also contain the complex sugar in case of disaccharides, polysaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. So we have to discuss the basic of the carbohydrates. So today, these things we have to learn. Carbohydrates are what? They are the organic compounds, and it is made up of the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And the general formula for the carbohydrate is CnH2ON. CnH2ON. And it is known as a sugars or saccharides. Saccharides is what? Saccharide is a sugars, and it is the primary source of energy for the living organisms, either plants, animals, and human beings. Even these carbohydrates are stored into the living organism. Store into the living organisms. Okay? Carbohydrates are considered as a fuel for the body. What is the role of the fuel? Fuel is provide the
To provide energy.
provide energy to the vehicle, due to which the vehicle work. Okay, same with the body. When we consume this carbohydrates, it's provide fuel, and this fuel provide the energy to the body so that it can be properly work. Okay, like suppose that I have to take the class. Then for taking the class, I require the energy. And if I don't eat the food, then I will not get that energy to taking the class. That's why thus carbohydrates provide the energy. One more thing that I forget to add in the beginning of the class, that is carbohydrates are also considered as a macronutrients. Means that it required in a huge amount. Okay, this carbohydrate required in a huge amount. Macro and micronutrients are there. So carbohydrates are come under the category of the macronutrients. Now, this that I already told you, this carbohydrate are stored in a living cell. So if we talk about the storage molecules, so in plant, it is stored in the form of the starch. Starch is the storage energy of the plant, and in animal, glycogen is the storage energy. Structural role, that is your cellulose and chitin, and it also act as a signaling molecules. Clear?
Clear, madam.
Okay. Now, sources of the carbohydrates. If we talk about the natural carbohydrate sources, then we get the carbohydrates from the fruits, vegetables, grains, and milk. They are the primary natural sources of the carbohydrate. Primary natural sources of carbohydrates. Next is your type of the carbs. So, complex carbs and simple carbs. Simple carbs that we get from sugar, honey, and soft drinks. Okay. Complex carbs we get from the rice, potatoes, wheat, and pulses. Classification of the carbohydrates, that is monosaccharides, disaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. Monosaccharide is considered as a smallest unit of carbohydrate. Okay, we cannot break it. Mono means single. Saccharides means sugar. Means that single sugar. It is considered as a single or simple sugar. We cannot hydrolyze the monosaccharides. Clear?
Clear, madam.
Now, disaccharides means that it is made up of the 2 units of monosaccharide. Glucose is the example of monosaccharide. Glucose and even galactose, fructose. And in disaccharides, there is a 2 unit of the monosaccharide. Either the 2 unit of monosaccharide is same or either it is different. Okay. Same like your sucrose. It is made up of the 2 unit of glucose. Glucose plus glucose give the sucrose. If 2 different unit of monosaccharide is combined like your maltose. And lactose. Okay. Oligosaccharides. Oligosaccharide consist 3 to 10 units of monosaccharides. And the last one is your polysaccharide, which consists of many monosaccharides. Clear?
Clear, madam.
Okay. Monosaccharide that I already told you, it is the simplest unit of carbohydrates which cannot be hydrolyzed. And these monosaccharide are considered as the sweet and water soluble. Classification of the monosaccharide. So this monosaccharide are classified by 2 ways. The first one is your on the basis of number of carbon atom, and the second one is on the basis of the functional group. So on the basis of their carbon number, this monosaccharides is divided into the 3 category: trioses, pentoses and hexoses. Trioses means that 3 carbons are present. Pentoses means that 5 carbon are present. Hexoses means that 6 carbon are present. Now, on the basis of functional group, it divided into the 2 category: aldoses and ketoses. When aldehyde group is present, then it is known as aldoses. When ketone group is present, then it is known as a ketoses. Clear?
Clear, madam.
Okay. Structure of glucose. So glucose is typically made up of the chemical formula of glucose is C6H12O6, and it can be exist in both form, that is your alpha and beta. Do you know the alpha and beta form of the glucose? Anybody?
Madam, levorotatory and dextrorotatory, madam.
All right. Now I'm going to show you the structure. Okay. Here. Just a minute. OH group, H group, H, OH, here OH, H, H, OH, OH, H. This is the first diagram. This is a second diagram. OH, H, H, OH, OH, H, H, OH. Now tell me which is alpha and which is beta. First diagram is a alpha and the second one is your beta. Okay, and the structure of this glucose is present in both way, that is your ring or open chain. So this diagram is ring or open chain? This is a ring diagram or open chain diagram? Obviously the ring is formed, so this is a ring chain diagram. Okay, open chain diagram is like this. This is known as a open chain diagram. And this glucose is considered as a main energy source for the cells. Structure of the fructose. Fructose is a ketoaxose sugar, means that it contains the 6 carbon atom and ketone functional group, and it is found in fruits and honey. It is sweeter than the glucose. Disaccharides are composed of two type of the monosaccharide. When the monosaccharide is condensate, then we get the disaccharide, and there is a bond that is known as a glycosidic bond. So two monosaccharide join together by a bond that is known as a glycosidic bond, and it can be hydrolyzed and converted into the monosaccharide. Okay, every disaccharides are hydrolyzed and it can converted into the monosaccharides, either lactose, maltose, anything. Clear? Clear?
Clear, madam.
Now some disaccharides, see. Sucrose is made up of the glucose and fructose. Lactose is made up of the glucose and galactose. So one thing I have to correct here. Here this glucose is, sucrose is made up of the glucose and fructose, not glucose and glucose. So sucrose is made up of glucose and fructose. These two are what? These two are the two different disaccharides. Two different monosaccharides. Two different monosaccharide units join together and form a disaccharides. Again, lactose is made up of the glucose and galactose, and maltose is made up of the 2 units of the glucose. These two are considered as a same monosaccharides. Glycosidic bond is a linkage between two sugars, and it is formed when a water is removed. and it can be determined by the alpha or beta configurations. Oligosaccharides contain 3 to 10 sugar units, means that 3 to 10 monosaccharides found in cell membranes, important for cell recognition and signaling. Polysaccharides are the long chain of the monosaccharides and it is insoluble in water, like your starch. Starch is a polysaccharide which are made up of the many unit of the monosaccharide, and it is insoluble in water, and it is served as a energy reserve or structural materials. Type of the polysaccharide. So on the basis of their storage, polysaccharides are divided into the two category, that is your starch and glycogen. Okay, starch is stored in plant and glycogen is stored in animal. On the basis of structure, it can divide into two parts, that is your cellulose and chitin. Starch storage form in plant. It is made up of the amylose and amylopectin, and it can found in grains, potatoes and rice. Glycogen is stored in animals. They are highly branched structure and it can be stored in liver and muscles. Cellulose. Cellulose is a structural polysaccharides present in plant. It is formed by a linear chain of the beta glucose, means that this one beta glucose, when there is a linear chain is formed, then it is known as a cellulose. Clear?
Clear, madam.
It provides the rigidity to the cell wall and indigestibility by human being. So it is not digestible by the human being. Chitin is found in a fungal cell wall and insect exoskeleton. It is very similar to the cellulose, but here there is a modification, and this modification are occur in the amino acids. That's how this chitin is different from that cellulose. Reducing and non-reducing sugar. So reducing sugar are those sugar in which free aldehyde and ketone groups are present, like glucose. And non-reducing sugar are those in which these free groups are not present, either the aldehyde or ketone, like your sucrose. Tested by the Benedict and Fehling test. Optical activity is show the optimal isomers, that is your D and L form, and it can be determined by the hydroxyl group orientation. Biological system mainly use the D form. Metabolisms, digestion start. This starch is converted into the glucose. Then glucose absorbed by the bloodstream. Then oxidation occur, and due to that oxidation, ATP is produced, and this ATP is used in the form of energy. This is the metabolism of the carbohydrates. So first of all, the complex carbohydrate are converted into the simple carbohydrate. Then that simple carbohydrate, especially the glucose, is absorbed by the bloodstream. Here the oxygen are present, due to which it is oxidized and produces the ATP, and ATP is used in the form of the energy. Role in energy production, like glucose, glycolysis, Krebs cycle, etc. One glucose can produce a 38 ATP, and it can be used for muscle, nerve and biosynthesis. Dietary carbohydrate, like simple carbs, they give a quick energy. Complex carb give a slow energy. Dietary fibers aids the digestion. Health aspect, deficiency of the carbohydrate cause the fatigue and low energy, and excess of the carbohydrate cause the obesity and diabetes. That's why it is said that we have to take the nutrient in a balanced way, not in a excess amount, not in a lesser amount. Okay, because deficiencies also cause the disease and excess of the nutrients is also cause the disease. So balance take is very important. Industrial and biological use, it is used in a food industry, fermentation and pharmaceutical. Cellulose is used in a paper industry, textile and plastic, and glucose syrup is used in a confectionery industry. Laboratory test for the carbohydrate that we will discuss in a letter in detail, like what is the smallest test, Banach test, iodine test. But smallest test give a violet ring, which give a confirmation of carbohydrate. Banach test give a brick red ppt, again it is a confirmation test of the carbohydrate. Iodine test give a blue black color for the stars, again it is the positive test for the carbohydrates. So essential biomolecules classified into the mono, di, oligo and poly and perform a energy structure and signaling roles. So this is all about the introduction of the carbohydrate. Do you have any doubt? If you have any doubt, just let me know.
No, ma'am.
Everything is clear?
No queries, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, I have a small.
Ask.
Madam, I will tell you. I will told you previous classes. Actually, is there any provide internships, ma'am?
Okay, I talked to the sir. He said me that he will contact you. Again,
Ma'am,
I will
nearby
remind.
Bangalore, nearly Bangalore, ma'am. Nearby Bangalore, ma'am. Only Bangalore only, ma'am.
I understand your query. I informed the sir.